This morning's scripture reading is Jeremiah 29, verses 11 through 13. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call upon me and come pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart.
It is good to see everyone here this morning, especially those who might possibly be joining us on our video, the YouTube channel that we have. Notice that our viewership is climbing slightly. We're certainly not breaking any YouTube records, but every view helps, and it's nice to know that there are those who are checking in on us and perhaps learning. Hopefully, I present something that is valuable and that the folks are benefiting from. Also, want to mention a very special welcome back to a couple of dear, sweet sisters, Miss Emily and Miss Mamie Baldwin, otherwise known as Sharon and Josie. Susan mentioned that Sharon suggested that they might be here this morning, God willing, weather and the creek didn't rise. And I got to thinking how various individuals in our church family matter to us and why they matter to us. And for some reason, as I was thinking of Sharon and Josie, the image of Miss Emily and Miss Mamie came to my mind. You never see them without the other. They're just together. And when they're not here, we miss them. And but then every analogy tends to blow up. You can only go so far with analogies. And I got to thinking, wouldn't it be funny if Miss Sharon and Miss Josie augmented their retirement with the recipe? Little bootleg whiskey on the side, maybe? I'm just never going to be able to look at Miss Emily and Miss Mamie the same. But Sharon and Josie, we miss you when you're not here. Cricket has been traveling to Texas, taking care of some business in Texas. I believe we missed Doyle and Winnie last week. No, okay. You got away from me too fast last week. That's what happened. I didn't get to say how do you to you. So just if you're not here on Sunday morning, we do miss you. And we are very, very grateful when you return. This morning we're almost to the end of our series of lessons in 1 Peter. We are here to the 5th chapter. We're going to be looking at the first 4 verses. In chapter 5, we have some of the most practical instructions. Although Peter has been throwing in little practical instructions throughout the letter, in chapter 5, really focuses in on what it means to be a disciple of Christ, and in particular in these first 4 verses, what it means to be a leader in a congregation of the Lord's church. In the past 2,000 years of church history, there have been very few subjects, and I'm not sure that there are probably any subjects, that have been so distorted from New Testament teaching as that of congregational leadership. And I say leadership in general because there's not any one specific role that has been distorted to the for any other role. Anytime one role is distorted, all the other roles are going to be distorted. I'm going to begin with the role of a minister simply because I can shoot myself. All right, I can lay blame at my feet as a minister, and because I have lived this role for 30 years, give or take a few months here and there, I feel like I have a little bit of earned experience and authority. In the New Testament, there are really very few instructions that I can see specifically for the role of what we have in the 21st century come to recognize as a minister. Now, I say that somewhat guardedly because you can go back, and particularly in the letters of 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, you can say, well, Paul is writing to a minister. And yes and no. He's writing to a young servant, but I'm not exactly sure that Timothy really fits the role that I have been trained to fill, that I grew up listening to, that in a couple of very human examples that I treasure very, very deeply. I think Timothy probably filled some of those slots, but he didn't fill all of them, and he certainly had other roles that Paul gave him that I do not have and cannot fill. So we move from the New Testament with what I would say are minimal instructions as to what a minister should be and do to 2025. And in my 30 years, like I said, give or take a few months, of looking at applying for different preaching positions, receiving different preaching positions, very often those preaching positions come with multiple pages of what are referred to as a job description. Now, as that role, as that position that we have called a job, as it increases, also, and not always, but very frequently, there is added to that role a significant amount of power. Now, some congregations, the minister has an incredible amount of power. Some, not so much. But very often, if you look at those job descriptions, what you see included in those job descriptions are the actual shepherding or pastoring roles that the New Testament assigns to the pastor, shepherd, elders. And so we see that as the role and as the power and as the significance of the minister is increased, and he is given more and more and more adulation, and the congregation and sometimes even the community looks to him as, the voice of the congregation or whatever. As that increases, the role and the function of the pastor, shepherd, elders have decreased. And since they are no longer performing the roles, the functions of the shepherd pastor, because they've given all of those to the preacher to do, they actually start performing the duties and the roles of the deacon. They're the door handle polishers and the light bulb changers. Now, where does that leave the deacons? Well, as I have witnessed throughout my experience, the poor deacons end up being the most frustrated, depressed, and confused members in the entire congregation. In congregation after congregation after congregation that I not only have worked in, but I have also been a part or had connections to through my fellow ministers, the deacons are given a budget. Okay, brother deacon, you can spend, we're putting you in charge of this. We want you to oversee this particular aspect of the congregation, and here's your budget. But you can't spend any of it until you come to us and get specific permission. We're putting you in charge of this particular ministry. We're asking you to be a deacon in charge of this particular ministry. But before you do anything, make sure you come to us and ask for permission. And so the poor deacons end up being hamstrung because they can't spend any money. And they can't make any decisions without running to the elders to have approval. And so the ministers get to be the shepherds get to be the deacons, and the deacons have a meeting once a month. When the topic of elders comes up within the congregations of the Churches of Christ, there's almost an instant and an automatic response. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 3 and Titus chapter 1, and we'll learn everything there is to know about elders. And I don't want to minimize that. And Paul gives both Timothy and Titus some very specific instructions about who to place in the function of an elder. But what we have come to emphasize in those texts is frequently called the qualifications of elders. Now, in my opinion, and I want to preface my comments with this, that what we have come to identify as the qualifications are more frequently used as disqualifications to eliminate the possibility that a man might serve as an elder, rather than a quality of life that he exhibits that we should honor and respect and place him in the role of, in the function of an elder to lead and to guide and to shepherd the congregation. I think this is our first mistake. We see these instructions as inviolable, concrete qualifications that a man must possess without a single exception before we can, and I'm using my little air quotes here, elect him to be an elder. However, if we viewed these passages in Timothy and Titus as qualities that every single member of us should aspire to reach, with the exception of being the husband of one wife. Ladies, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you permission to be the husband of one wife. But everything else in these texts are qualities and spiritual formation kind of things that we should all aspire to. If we do that, the picture changes dramatically. Now we look at a man and we compare him to the role that we are asking him to fill, a function that we are asking him to plug into, knowing that no one single man is going to be perfect in every respect. And I see this from the men who we often search out for, and we say, brother so-and-so, would you consider leading us leading our congregation as a pastor, elder, shepherd. Oh, no, I'm not perfect enough. Who is? Who could be? Or we have a congregational discussion about who might be able to serve us as elders. And a man's name is put forward. Oh, no, we can't make him to be an elder. Why? Because out of a year of 52 Sundays, he's only here 48. He's not here for 4 weeks. Four worship services. How can he be an elder if he's not here for 4 weeks? I don't see that. Who can be perfect? And so we elevate this idea of these men have to be literally more perfect than Paul or Peter. And it's not going to be possible. But when we compare their qualities of life compared to the role and the function that we are asking them to fill, the picture changes dramatically. And so that leads me then, quite possibly, one of the longest introductions to reading a passage of Scripture. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 through 4. Here, Peter does not really discuss these qualities of an elder, but describes his service, his shepherding. Notice how Peter couches his advice. Let's read the text. So I exhort the elders among you, as a fellow elder and witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly as God would have you, not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory. Peter uses 3 what we would consider to be plain, vanilla, common Greek words in this paragraph. But he instills in them some great, deep meaning. First of these, he identifies himself as a fellow elder. The word here is presbyteros. We get the word presbyter or Presbyterian from this word. And in the Greek language, just the common language in which it's used in letters and documents and thus and such, it simply means one who is older. All right? Those of you who have gray hair, or gentlemen kind of like me, if it were longer and more visible, it would be gray. You are a presbyteros. You are an older member of a congregation and community. In the book of Proverbs, gray hair, silver hair is the crown of honor and glory. We've earned it, folks. Let's wear it proudly. But that is the first word. Peter says, as a fellow elder and witness of the suffering of Christ. He gives us 2 things that elders are to do. They are, number 1, to shepherd the flock. Here, the word poimen is used. It is frequently, it can be translated as shepherd, or it can be translated as pastor. And so you've noticed throughout the message so far this morning, I have used pastor, I've used shepherd, I've used elder, and there's another one that's coming up here in just a moment. But the role or the function of an elder is he is to pastor shepherd, feed, protect the flock. He is to take care of the immediate concerns. That's what a shepherd does. You ask yourself, well, what is a shepherd? Who is a shepherd? Well, a shepherd is one who leads his flock to a field, to a meadow in which they can graze safely. When it's time to water them, he leads them, he guides them to calm water so that they can get all the water that they need. He watches over each and every single animal. And he notices if one is wounded, if one's gotten off into the brambles and sticks and weeds and cut itself. He has his little bag of salve there that he rubs over that wound so that the flies do not get into it, it doesn't become infected. And he separates the animals that are kind of butting up against each other so that they don't hurt each other. He makes sure the little lambs are taken care of. He makes sure the older of the sheep are taken care of. So he's constantly watching over. He's feeding, he's protecting, he's guarding, he's taking care of the immediate concerns. So that's the shepherd, the pastor, the poimen. But secondly, these elder pastor shepherds are to exercise oversight. This is the word episkopos. We get the word Episcopalian. It is also translated bishop. This is where we get the idea or the concept of a bishop. Those who are episkopoi, they are the guards. They are the superintendents. They are the ones who have the long-term vision for the congregation. Whereas a shepherd takes care of the day-to-day aspects of watching over the flock, the episkopoi look for the long term, the 5-year, the 10-year, the 15-year. So they're constantly thinking about, well, okay, where is this flock going to be maybe 2 or 3, 4, 5 years down the road? How do I need to prepare to take care of this flock? What fields do I need to rotate them? What water supplies do I need to make sure that they're constantly going to have water? How am I going to protect them in terms of a sheepfold? Do I need to repair and rebuild the sheepfold? How am I going to take care of the younger ones, the little ones? How am I going to take care of the older ones? But it's not so much as, well, this lamb has a sticker, but it's, what am I going to do to make sure that this lamb has a nice long life? Their decision-making in the sense of decision-making is derivative. It's not a primary function, but it is a derivative function. What's fascinating about these 3 words is that they're all wrapped up, they're all rolled up, they're all bundled up together in one critically important function. They are the wiser elder group of the congregation. You don't put a man who's 22 years old in the role of an elder. He's a younger, right? God did not call his congregational leaders youngers. He called them elders. So they are the older, wiser group that's been around the block a few times. Or you might even say been around the sun a few times, more than others. So that's the elder component, but they are also the pastor shepherds. The preacher is not a pastor unless he has been given that specific function and duty by the congregation. Some preachers are elders. Many are not. and they should not exercise that role, nor should they be given that power and that authority. So the older, wiser presbyteroi are also the poimanes. They are the pastor shepherds. They are to take care of the immediate concerns of the congregation. They're to watch over, to make sure that if anyone's wounded, they're taken care of, to make sure that the congregation is fed, to make sure that the congregation is guarded. Paul, specifically in Acts chapter 20, tells the elders from the congregation in Ephesus to watch out, because out of their number will arise wolves that will seek to destroy the congregation. So, pastor, elder, shepherds are to guard and to protect. But they are also episcopoi. They are also the bishops. They are also the superintendents of the congregation, who are given the authority and the power and the duty to look 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, to have a vision for God's congregation in that location. Where are we going to be? What about our little ones, the little lambs in our congregation? Are they going to have a place to worship 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now? What do we need to teach to provide the education that this congregation needs for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? So they are the superintendents. They are the episcopoi of the congregation. Now, in addition to these two things that Peter tells these pastor, elder, shepherds to do, there are 3 things they're not supposed to do, or they're to get rid of. Number 1, they are not supposed to do this under compulsion. They're not supposed to be forced to do this. This is a position that is to be volunteered for. It is a position that must be looked at as a joy, something that is willingly taken care of. So, not under compulsion, but willingly. Number 2, not for shameful gain, but eagerly. Now, in the New Testament, we're also reminded that an elder, pastor, elder, shepherd, bishop, who also has the role of preaching and teaching, kind of fills 2 roles, does double honor, is worthy of double honor. So it's not unheard of, and it would not be inappropriate to pay an elder. Now, this is something within the churches of Christ we don't typically do, because we assume that he's either going to be working, or if he's retired, he's going to have some great big huge fat bank account and he doesn't need to be paid. What about if we picked a man who is old enough to be a presbyteroi, and an older, wiser member of the congregation, and said, look, we're going to pay you to be a full-time elder. That would be perfectly 100% biblical. And we are freeing him up from having to do an 8-to-5 job in order to take care of his pastor, elder, shepherding, bishoping. So it's not wrong, it would not be wrong to pay an elder, but he is not supposed to do this for shameful gain. He's not supposed to fleece the flock. And third, Peter says, not domineering. Elders do not issue rules. Elders do not issue orders. They're not the head coach of the team. The chief shepherd is the coach of the team. The pastor, elder, shepherds are those who follow the orders of the chief shepherd. So they're not supposed to be domineering, decision-making, sitting back in the back rooms of the congregation around a table issuing edicts. That is not the role of a pastor, elder, shepherd. They are not to be domineering, but they are to lead by example. And then Peter's wonderful expression of what these folks have to look forward to. When the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory. This is a victor's crown. It's the crown that's awarded to the winner of a race. If you see pictures or kind of carvings, a lot of times they show up in various different ways, but you'll see an athlete with a crown of laurel or ivy or something on their head. That was the temporary winner's crown, right? It wouldn't last but maybe days, and then it would be discarded because that race is over with. I'm getting ready for the next one. So Peter does something here that's really kind of interesting. He doesn't talk about just the passing temporary victor's crown. He says it's going to be the unfading, the victor's crown that never ends. They will keep this crown for all eternity, but only after their race is completed. It's not a crown of royalty. Power trips demonstrated by elders are absolutely disqualifying. But for an elder, pastor, shepherd who rules lovingly and kindly, he will receive this crown of glory. Well, I want to end with just a couple of more observations. Does every church have to have elders? I'm going to say probably not. I can't find a direct command in Scripture that a congregation has to have elders. However, I will also very emphatically say that we have a lot of very clear instructions. We have the examples in the book of Acts. We also have Paul writing to Timothy and to Titus to appoint elders. So it is clearly something that God wants to have in his congregation. So I'm going to ask a different question. Does every congregation deserve to have elders? And the answer to that, I'm going to say, is absolutely. Every congregation of God's people deserves to have godly, spiritual men lead the congregation. I didn't say perfect. You find me a perfect man, and I'm running away from him as fast as I can because the good Lord's going to strike him dead with a bolt of lightning, and I don't want to be too close. I haven't met a perfect man in my entire life. I'm not perfect. So I don't really want to get close to somebody who thinks he is perfect. But do we deserve to have elders? Good, godly, spiritual men. Yes, absolutely. Not me, okay? I'm not a pastor, elder, shepherd, bishop. I'm the minister. So, this is the lesson that we have this morning. Beautiful, powerful message from Peter to these men who are called by God to serve his church. What a beautiful message. If there's anyone this morning who desires to make a commitment to the church, to Jesus Christ, to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, or to be a member of this congregation, If there is any response that anyone needs to make this morning, would you let us know as we stand and sing?